Great. Welcome everyone to today's USD's Salary Negotiations 101 presentation. We're really excited to have Linda Drews from Solve Energy here today to guide us through this conversation and share some information about salary negotiations. And with that, I will pass it off to Linda.
Thanks, Kelsey. Hi again, I'm Linda Drews. I'm with Solve Energy. Thanks for taking the time to join us today. This is me, Solve Energy. I'm a senior talent acquisition partner at Solve Energy. I'm also on the DEI committee as one of the Inclusion Resource Committee leads. My background, I am a recruiter, talent acquisition. I've been an HR manager. I've also worked in various industries, including construction, renewable energy. I've worked at staffing agencies. I have a long history of recruiting and HR experience, probably more than 20 years. Part of my job is to partner with hiring managers to recruit and hire talented individuals who fill a variety of roles for our company across the United States. One of the things I'm passionate about is hiring people. I believe that hiring talent and bringing people into the company is what drives the success of the company, because if you don't have talented individuals, how can you be successful at a company, right? A little bit about Solve Energy. We do work across the United States. We have a heavy footprint in many states. If you look at the map on the screen, the ones that are in like the baby blue, those are the areas that we really don't have a very strong presence, maybe more O&M, but the rest of the states that are in the dark blue and the green are where we do EPC and O&M. So like I said, quite a footprint. We work in more than 30 different states from coast to coast. A little bit about Solve Energy. Our mission is to make a positive difference wherever we go through projects that generate good energy for people and the planet. We work on utility scale solar, high voltage substations, battery storage systems, and related facilities. Solve Energy has a large and visible footprint. Our job sites and geographic reach are large, literally and figuratively. One of our largest EPC, and if you don't know what EPC is, that means engineering, procurement, and construction. O&M means operations and maintenance. So what we do is we build large-scale solar farms across the United States, which is at EPC, but then we also do O&M, the operations and maintenance of them after they're built. Solve Energy takes this seriously. Our role as a leader and pioneer in being thoughtful and deliberate about how we do our work and how it impacts not only our stakeholders, but the people in our community and where we work. A little bit more about Solve Energy. Our focus is solar from a wide range of EPC services, high voltage, so we design and build the substations at those solar sites. We also do the battery storage, the PV and the BESS. BESS means battery storage or standalone options. We also provide different services such as performance, testing, controls, dispatch, monitoring, operations, maintenance in general. OTS, which is the end-to-end SCADA and network infrastructure. So there's a lot of different network infrastructure that helps our sites be able to perform. We are a San Diego-based company. Ironically, I'm in the office today, but like I said, we do operate across the United States in more than 30 different states. In the background of some of these pictures, you can see some of our solar sites. Our solar sites are large. I went to one recently that was more than 600 football fields large. So if you can imagine that, just to go from where you go to the job site trailer to where the substation was, it took us more than 30 minutes. It's pretty incredible if you think about it. I'm going to bounce over to start with the salary negotiations. There's a lot of statistics around salary negotiations. I had a hard time figuring out which ones I wanted to be able to showcase to you. So I found some that was more tailored to somebody who might be a recent grad. Um, salary negotiation is very common. If you try to negotiate a salary, just so you know, it does not impact your offer. If you try to negotiate, they will not rescind the offer and take it away from you because the offer still stands. However, statistics show that it's not very common for somebody to negotiate a salary. If you see on the screen, it says that 38% of grads don't negotiate a salary. 62%, or no, sorry, I'm reversing that. 62% don't negotiate a salary and 38% do. The people who do negotiate salaries typically tend to be men more than women. Um, 90% of employers have never retracted a salary offer based on a candidate trying to negotiate. So think about that number. Be comfortable with the fact that if you want to negotiate, they will not take that offer back off the table. Um, feel empowered that you have the ability to negotiate. 74% of employers have room to negotiate the offer up 5 to 10% of what they're actually offering you. 80% of the students who negotiate have been at least partially successful in their negotiations. I don't know about you, but if I want to negotiate and I want more money, I'm going to try to negotiate for it. It's going to lead to something better for you in the future. I'll have you do some calculations in a little while so you can actually look at numbers rather than stats, and you can see like dollars and figures of what that means. Um, you can also see some of the rates for negotiation, the success rates of non-salaried things like a schedule, paid time off, bonuses, stock. There are things that you can negotiate that are different from salary, but can still increase your bottom line across the board. Employers expect salary negotiations. 84% of the employers who are surveyed said that they expect it. Failing to negotiate could cost you in the future thousands of dollars, depending on how high your wage is. It could also cost you in the millions. I don't know about you, but I'd rather have that $1 million in my pocket. So I'm willing to try to negotiate. Um, everybody give me a thumbs up if you think that you would be interested in negotiating salaries so you can help better yourself in the future. Feel free to drop a thumbs up in the chat. Some of your reasons for negotiation is this does set you up for future benchmarks as far as your salary. It also reflects your value. It can improve your job satisfaction. If you're making the money that you feel like you deserve, then you're probably going to be a little bit more satisfied with your job and stay at that job. It also helps you achieve fair compensation for the skills that you have to bring to the table. Let's talk about what determines a job offer. So different things can impact your job offer. Some of it could be the size of the company. A smaller company may not have it in their budget to offer a large salary. So that can, again, adjust where you're going to be offered and what you're going to be offered as far as a pay range. Employers look at different things like your skills and your experience. The more relevant and valuable your skills and experience are, the stronger the candidate you are for the job, the higher your pay might be as an offer. Some things that also could impact your ability for a job offer or to increase that job offer are your education and your certifications. I'm going to go back to skills and experience. This is something that I found that most generally people don't sell themselves on their skills and experience. Right now, I'm in the process of recruiting and hiring some of our interns, and people don't realize the value that some of their school projects have on their experience and don't put it on their resume. Be confident that you have some of those skills and experience and put it on your resume. That can help set you up. Some of the other things that can also impact an offer would be pay equity and pay structures internally at a company. When I talk about pay equity, I'm talking about if you get an offer, some companies will look at pay equity. What is another person with similar skill set and similar job title being paid? They don't want to bring somebody else who's, a brand new employee off the street without any work experience and hire them in at a higher pay rate than somebody who's been with the company for a few years who has solid work experience. That causes like an inequity as far as different pay ranges with the same job title. So companies are looking at those things. I know that for my company, that's one of the things that we look at when we're giving job offers is pay equity, how will impact, somebody else, and is there an equity there? What can be negotiated? Let's talk about that. There are a lot of perks that can be negotiated and are things to consider when you're looking at your salary besides your base. So you could potentially negotiate vacation time. I know for me, I would love more vacation time. You can potentially negotiate health insurance, not necessarily company culture, but that is something that you definitely do want to ask. Because I know that for me, coming to a company like Solve Energy, I'm excited to be here every day. It's a great company culture. I thrive in it, and I think other people do as well. So that's a good question that I always want to know is what's the company culture like? Um, Things that you can also negotiate during an offer are relocation expenses. If you have to move to relocate for a job, you don't want to have to pay for that out of your own pocket. So that's something that you can definitely ask is there any, relocation reimbursement or expenses that could be covered to help you cover those costs? You're not paying for that out of your own pocket. Other things that can be negotiated are what are some of my professional development opportunities? What kind of parental leave do I have? What are some of my other benefits? Like, do I have a flexible schedule? Can I work from home? Different things like that. Um, Salary can be negotiated at any time, or not at any time, but anytime pretty much before you start getting the offer. You want to start thinking about what you're looking for as far as a pay range. And I'm going to have you, if you have your phone and want to break out a calculator, I'm going to show you why it's important to be able to try to negotiate an offer from the beginning rather than later. If you have your phone and you have a calculator on your computer, take for instance, if you start at a position at $75,000 and then you get a 10% pay increase, what would that pay increase be if you receive a pay increase? Go ahead and drop it in the chat. I hope you're getting the same number I did. 7,500. So if I take 75,000 with a 10% pay increase, my total pay would be 82.5. But say for instance, if I started at a new job and I negotiated an $80,000 pay or salary from the get-go and I got a 10% increase, after a year, what would my pay rate be? Feel free to drop it in the chat. I know I'm really testing you guys with some math skills today. But I just want you to be able to kind of figure this out and do this on your own. It's like if somebody gave you an offer, think about those things. What's my future projection? Or even just if you take a $75,000 offer, but what if you negotiated for 5 or 10% more? What's that difference? Calculate those differences and know what those things mean to you, because like for me, if I'm looking at, you know, 75,000 as opposed to 80,000, that's a $5,000 difference. For me, $5,000, that can go a long way. I mean, if I'm paying $5,000, at $5,000 extra in my pocket, I think about, okay, my car payment is $500. That's, how many months of car payments would I have? That's 10 months of car payments that I would have because I negotiated for that. So I'm thinking about how is that going to hit my bottom line. I'm always thinking about those things like what is this? How is it going to impact me? I think about this in a lot of things in my life, whether I'm like, okay, I'm not going to go here, but I'm going to go to Starbucks. That means I'm probably going to spend $6 or $7. But if I didn't go to Starbucks, I can use that $6 or $7 someplace else. So if you're thinking about doing those kind of things on your own, like budgeting, think about that for your salary too. Those are things that help set you up. Those are things that are going to help you pay your bills, when you're out of school and being able to financially be independent on your own. That $5,000 or $10,000 could also be how many months worth of rent, or how much money could you put in savings to be able to afford a down payment on a house, all those things that you start thinking about. So it's always great to know how to calculate those things. I hope that makes it, I hope you understand where that difference is, like, and how that can impact you. One of the things that you want to look at too is any item that would totally be part of like the total compensation, and we'll cover total compensation later on and what total compensation is, but those are things that definitely you want to look at when you're looking at a job offer. Like, what does the company have to offer? What are the other things they have to offer? And how would that impact me? Health insurance is a huge thing for me. I can tell you that I was at one company where I was receiving a higher job offer to go to another company, but when I started looking at the total nuts and bolts of like what the offer was and what the different benefits are, my actual health insurance cost went up. And so then my total bottom line of what I was actually taking home ended up netting less. And so those are all the things that you want to look at when you're looking at a job offer. Don't just look at like, ooh, this is what I'm making. Look at every single thing and, make sure that you are doing your due diligence for yourself to make sure that this is the right opportunity for me. And it's okay if somebody gives you a job offer to ask, can I have time to think about this? Or what is my time frame to make a decision? Don't automatically just jump in and say, yes, because you're excited, because I know that would be my reaction too. Sorry, my PowerPoint is going a little slow. I'm trying to go, oh, there it is. So effective salary negotiations start with research. Research the market rates, understand what the average salary is for the role, your experience, and the location. This starts from the application process. It doesn't start during the offer stage. This starts when you apply for a job. Look at what the pay rate is. In some states like California, there's wage transparency. What that means is they will post the range for the job so that you know. If it's not posted like in other states, then be sure you're doing your research. Go to Glassdoor, go to salary.com, LinkedIn, Indeed, or other different data sources that will help provide you with a salary range. I always look at when I'm looking for, not that I've looked for a lot of jobs, just so you guys know, but when I do look for a job, or if I'm thinking about looking for a job, I'm going to make sure that it's like a project, right? I'm going to put my full effort into it. I'm going to make sure I'm recording the information, documenting it. So I have like an easy tool to go back to, whether it's creating an Excel spreadsheet, using OneNote, wherever, so you can track that market information so that if you do get the job offer, you already have that information. You've already done your research. You've already set yourself up for success to be able to accept that job offer or to consider the job offer and if it's right for you. So definitely do your research. Again, you'll hear me probably repeat that over and over again. Do your research, know your value, know what the rate is, know if you're actually receiving the right offer for you and for your skills and experience. Has anybody had an opportunity to do any type of salary research on a job? Go ahead and drop a thumbs up if you have, and a thumbs down if you have not. It's okay if you don't want to do a thumbs down. I prefer a thumbs up.
I see a couple thumbs up.
Yay! Like I said, it's good to know where like where your income is going to come from and if you're in the right rate. And when I go back to the pay ranges, again, the size of the company could matter. For instance, I'm going to give an example of a job. This is a common position, like say, for instance, like somebody who does maybe accounts payable or payroll. You could work for a really small company and maybe make a mid-range salary, maybe $25, $30 an hour. But if you went to a bigger company, they might offer something different. So know the market, know the job, know the company too, not just what that particular position offers. I've seen it also for like even an HR assistant or coordinator. You can see wide variety of pay ranges, but then try to figure out why is there a huge difference in the pay ranges when I'm applying for a job? Is it because the job, the company might be small? If it's a smaller company, then, research the company. Is it something that place you want to work for, or explore, or is it an industry that you want to join and be part of, something to think about. But again, research is always going to be your friend. Knowledge is power, right? I just realized that I don't think I covered some more information about Solve Energy, but that's okay. I'll keep talking about salary negotiations. I just started just thinking about that. I'm so sorry. So again, research and prepare. Do your research on the company and the job. Keep track of the research, where you're applying. It's always great to remember where you applied. Like do your research on the company. Again, the offer process starts during the application, like even during the interview when somebody asks you, are you familiar with the company? Do you know about our job or our company? Do your research. That helps you level up, because if you've done your research, it could help you actually secure that job offer, right? If you get the offer, you want to evaluate the offer again before accepting the offer. Fully understand what it entails, and ask for time to make a decision. Always ask for the details. Be comfortable and confident that you can build a relationship with the recruiter. I've built long-standing relationships with people that I've talked to and recruited, and interviewed to bring into a job, to the point where we could have an open conversation like, hey, you know, where is this, if they get us offer, I've had people ask me, where is the target range? Here's what I'm looking for. And whatever is posted on a job, That can be like, it can go from minimum, mid to high. If you're looking at whatever is posted, you always want the high range, right? But the reason why there's a high range there is somebody who might actually be in the job, who's been in that job for a long time, and they're at that peak. They're ready to like cap out and move to the next level. So if you're coming in and you do not have experience in that role, more than likely you will not come in at that high range. So have that understanding and knowledge. Research where the pay range would be for somebody with your skill set, your experience level, so you have an understanding so that you're not trying to ask for too much, right? Because obviously I'm going to want to come in and try to make the highest, but also if I'm coming in and making the highest, I could be capped out and not able to make anything else for a little while. I can give you a good example that actually happened to a roommate of mine. She was in a salary range for a position where she capped out based on her experience. She could have moved to the next level, but she kept capping out at that job. So they didn't give her any pay increases, but they also didn't give her the opportunity to level up because she had the highest range she could make for that job. So even if she made a lateral move, she was still going to make the same. So she had to keep applying for other jobs within the company that would be a promotion. And it took a few years, but she finally got it. But for a few years, she did not get a pay increase because she had capped out. So always look, always know, research, prepare so you have an understanding and knowledge of the job, the compensation for that job, do the salary the comparison to make sure you have a good understanding. But not only a good understanding of the offer, again, go back and do your research, compare it to what your needs are. Will that meet your basic needs to be able to pay your bills? You want to do more than pay your bills. You want to get ahead, right? And be successful and thrive. So don't just be excited that you get the offer, because that's always the first knee-jerk reaction, or at least for me. Like I know when I was coming out of school, I was like, I got a job, woo, right? But do your research, know and understand what your needs are. Will that offer help pay your bills and help you sustain and get ahead rather than putting you behind? You can negotiate the offer. After the offer is negotiated, always ask for it in writing, because if they gave you, say, for instance, maybe an offer at 75, but then you went back and negotiated for 80, make sure that you're getting anything updated in writing. If it's not the actual dollar amount and you negotiated different benefits or other things, make sure that they're putting that in writing for you as well, so that you have something to come back on. Having that written offer is like a contractual obligation, so you can make sure that you're getting your benefits that you've set yourself up for to get that offer. There are some do's and don'ts on a salary negotiation. Again, you see that word, research. I feel like I'm giving you guys a lot of homework by saying research over and over again. But be confident in the research that you do. When you're speaking to people about the salary or offer or negotiations, be positive. Ask for advice. If you're talking to a recruiter or talking to HR, you can always ask them, is there room for negotiation? you know I'll tell you that, I'll be honest, if somebody's asking me and they actually took the time to ask, I'll tell them. I'm a straight shooter, because I hope that somebody would be a straight shooter to me if it was me trying to negotiate a salary, right? Some of the things you don't want to do is show up unprepared for a salary negotiation, like not know where the market is, not know anything about the company. Don't apologize that you're asking for a different amount. Definitely don't say no right away, that, hey, no, I'm not going to, not going to accept the offer. Always just say, thank you, let me think about it, right? Um, don't lie about what your current salary is. And speaking of current salary, that's something you don't have to disclose to an employer when they're asking you, like, what are you looking for a salary? They're not asking what your current salary is. They're asking you what range you're looking for. So feel free to give them a range. You don't have to say, well, my current pay is this. Well, then they kind of already know where you're at. It's not about where you're at, it's about what skills you have to bring to the table, right? And what you have to offer to the company. So remember those things, and you don't have to volunteer again what your current pay rate is. Because for instance, what if you work in fast food right now in San Diego? That's $20 an hour, but what if you worked at Target? They're 17. There's a difference, right? So if they're asking your pay rate, they shouldn't be. You shouldn't have to volunteer it either. You can tell them what your salary expectations are, but always provide a range so that it's not like pigeonholing you into $1 amount. I had a conversation last week with somebody, and uh, I asked them, I said, hey, this position, based on your experience, what are your salary, expectations? And the person told me, and they what they said was around this amount. And I was like, okay. And I said, well, that amount is a little bit lower than the position that we have posted. And she's like, oh, I don't think you heard what I said. She said, it's around that amount. It's not that amount. I'm like, okay, perfect. And I'm like, I got it. That was my bad for not listening to what she was saying. And I said, okay, so since the range is a little bit lower than what your range might be, are you still willing to go forward with this position and opportunity and keep interviewing? And she said yes, but that's where now I know, okay, she's still kind of comfortable with this range. It's okay to say that, hey, I might not be comfortable, but it's okay to also say, I am comfortable going forward. You hold the control into your hands of how you're going to negotiate your job offer and your future. Um, Again, I'm going to reiterate, do your research on the industry, highlight your value. So that's part of researching yourself and knowing your value compared to what other people are or what the job description is. So look at the job description, know your value that you might match it, be able to speak on that, right? Have your elevator pitch, and each job could be different, right, that you're applying for, but definitely know your value. Look at the job description, look at what your skills match that job description, so you can be able to tell them, hey, you know what, I'm not really sure that this offer is the right offer for me. I have this and this X, Y, and Z to be able to bring to the table that match this. Is there any room for negotiation? Be willing to, value yourself and be willing to promote yourself. I know that we kind of live in a, what do you call it, a social media TikTok world, right? People are influencers. Be an influencer on your salary, right? Promote yourself during an interview, promote yourself during the salary negotiations, be an influencer of your own. Never undervalue yourself, never accept the first offer. Take a breath, right? Get the job offer, take a breath. Think about it for a second. And again, go back and do your research. Make sure that this offer is the right offer for you. Here's some sample scripts also. Before I accept the offer, I'd like to discuss the proposed salary. Another way of asking for, time or consideration, you can say, I appreciate your offer and I'm very interested in the position. However, I'd like to discuss the compensation further. You're not saying no, you're just asking for a conversation. Are you open to a conversation to talk to me about this? You're going to find that most HR, most recruiters, they are going to be willing to talk to you. Don't just close the conversation down. It's a little scary. I know that. Believe me, I know that. But I don't know. Sorry. My logo is covering up some of the script and I just noticed that. So sorry. But just know that people are willing to work with you and willing to listen, have a conversation. Some of the other things you can say is, I'm I'm happy to hear that you want to bring me to the team. I'm very excited to get started. However, I was hoping if we could discuss the compensation. Again, these are sample scripts. You're not demanding a different offer amount. You're just asking for consideration. You don't want to be demanding during like the negotiation stages. You can also say, hey, based on my research, again, it shows that you've done your research and you know what you're talking about. Based on my research of the position and my skill set, I was hoping for something a little higher, you know, and you can say, are you open to a discussion about that? Or does this position have room for negotiation? Another way to say it, is there flexibility to explore this range or something higher? Again, you're asking. They can always say no, but I guarantee you most of the time they'll say, let me check on this, or let me see if there is room for negotiation. The recruiter or the HR manager may not know, and they might have to go back to a hiring manager to make sure that there is flexibility, but they're not closing you down. So if it's not a no until you actually hear no. You can also say, I'm flexible on the range, however, based on my skills and experience, would I be able to negotiate the offer amount? And they may say that they have to check on it. If they say they have to check on it, they're not shutting you down. It's not a no. They're not going to rescind the offer and take the offer out. And one of the things I do as a recruiter too is when I'm talking to people and if they ask for, a, a salary negotiation, I always tell them, hey, I'm going to go back to the table and see if I can get this negotiated for you. And I always reconfirm, however, this does not take the original offer off the table, just so that they know. And sometimes, I have had people ask me, can you send me the offer in writing, the original offer in writing, because I want to see it in writing. And I'm like, absolutely, I'll send you the written offer so you can see it and you can look at the information and evaluate it. And don't be afraid to ask for the same thing, right? It helps you at the end of the day if you're a person that wants to be able to compare, this offer and see it in writing to what all the information is. Do your due diligence, do your research, do your homework. Hate the word homework, but do your homework to make sure this is something that's going to be right for you. These are sample scripts. One of the things you don't want to say is, like, hey, I don't think this is going to work for me. You always want to be courteous and not just kind of like shut it down. Always thank them, because at the end of the day, what if you came back to that company in the future or you shut it down in a negative way? We had somebody recently who turned a job offer down that we gave them, and they're like, are you kidding me? Not exact words, but they might have used an F word somewhere in there. But they're like, are you kidding me? This is not, aligned for what I'm worth, type of thing. And they're like, have you taken a look at my resume? Have you done this? Basically, they were pretty much being a little argumentative and disrespectful about us trying to negotiate the offer. However, in the future, if they came back, I'm not sure I'd want to hire that person if they were that argumentative and being that disrespectful about us saying that, here's the offer. They shut us down immediately. But they had great skills. I mean, obviously enough that we gave them an offer. And who's to say maybe in a year or two, the offer amount would be exactly what they're looking for. So always keep your options open, keep the relationships going. And I have somebody drop in the chat if you guys want to. Are there any other sample or like scripts you would say or recommend using as part of the salary negotiations, like in an open-ended way that would be a positive way for you to build that relationship with the hiring manager, the HR manager, or the recruiter? Feel free to drop it in the chat. I love to hear what your thoughts are and how you would negotiate. And part of that is me just seeing if you might have absorbed some information from what I'm saying. Because since I can't see you or hear you, I'm not sure if you're still awake. So go ahead and feel free to drop it in the chat. Maybe a sample script of what you feel comfortable saying. I see some thumbs up, so I'm sure that you guys are still awake.
I
I'm
can
gonna go back.
I can be on the lookout for those scripts for when they come in.
Okay. So we talked a little bit about total rewards. I want to talk about this further because to me, total rewards are a huge thing when I'm looking at a job offer. And those are things that I think that not everybody looks at. And I want to be able to give you some of the information and tools of what to look at when you're looking at total rewards. And those are things that also could affect your bottom line in different ways. So you can see the nice graph over here where it says like, what are some of the things that could impact the employee experience. So compensation, again, is the ones that's in yellow. In blue is benefits. I mentioned it earlier where, I had taken a job offer or looked at a job offer before where my actually health insurance benefits cost me more to take that job offer. So at the end of the day, I was equaling out in almost the same pay because I was paying more in my health insurance benefits. But then I had to look at what else does the company have to offer. If I'm not making anything really more at the end of the day, what do they have that's in it for me, right? So things that you can look at are, do they value my well-being? Do they have things that promote my well-being? Are there different types of things that the company does as far as community impact? I can tell you that for the past probably 10 years, I've worked at some really great companies who have done so much to impact their communities with different nonprofits, with different giving campaigns. For instance, tomorrow there's a group of people from Solve Energy who are going to go to Feeding San Diego and do a volunteer shift. That's huge for me. We're impacting our community, and the company supports that. You know, they have different things as far as how they can do matching for our dollars if we donate to a nonprofit. That's extra. That's going to help my dollar stretch further if they're going to match my donations, right? So then I'm able to impact my community in a better way. So those are things I'm looking at, not just what my total salary is. I'm looking at what else is going to impact me as a whole person and make me feel good about where I work. Um, some of the things are, the work environment. Work environment could also be like your work schedule. Do they offer a good schedule? Is it a remote work opportunity? If it's not a remote work opportunity, I recently spoke with somebody who had a remote work opportunity and actually turned me down. I was a little sad because the person was a great match for what we have. The reason why they turned the position down was they did not want a remote work opportunity. They said that their personality was somebody who needed to be working alongside somebody, engaged with them and being on site. And they felt that being able to be on site and building those relationships was a great thing. We didn't have an office in the city the person lived in, so they chose actually not to take our offer because they did not want a remote work opportunity. But kudos to that person for knowing that the remote work opportunity wasn't for them. A lot of people prefer a remote work opportunity. They don't have to commute. That's a huge thing. So look at those things when you're looking at a job offer. How does that impact you? When you look at the work environment, the other thing to consider is how far am I going to commute each day? I live down in Chula Vista. Now I've got to commute up to the office. It's an hour commute, the hour one way, an hour to go back home. Is that really giving me work-life balance? So those are all things to factor and consider when you're looking at a job offer. It's not always about the salary. Think about everything. What's in it for me? How can I get the best for what's this position? Is it the right position for me? Another thing is learning and development. Does the company give learning and development opportunities, growth opportunities, right? If they're promoting you being able to have an opportunity to keep learning and growing, that means you can keep leveling up in your career. One of the things, like for instance, you'll hear tuition reimbursement or tuition assistance. Sometimes those are added in as an employee benefit. Sometimes they are not. So it's not uncommon for people to ask, do you have it available? Is it something that's available to me? Those helps you keep elevating yourself to be able to keep maybe getting a certification or getting some other knowledge that can keep leveling yourself up in your career to help continue not only to get a pay increase, but maybe if you don't stay at that company, you go on to a different company, a different job offer. But those are also things that help you to be able to go back to your current manager and level up a new offer in compensation if you're at your current company. Say, hey, you know what? I've taken these courses, I've obtained this certification. I'm legit. Help me elevate myself, right? It's you advocating for yourself and being able to promote yourself and trying to negotiate not a salary, but a salary increase from what your current pay is. Another thing you can look at a company is, do they have DEI efforts? DEI is huge, I think, at different companies. So not so much in the political climate that we're in now, but for me it is. I believe in having people that are from different colors, backgrounds, shapes, sizes, gender, equality, everything. I want different people at the table, because if there are different people at the table, guess what? There's different ideas. It leads to different growth within a company, to be able to have different people giving ideas and thoughts and being able to help shape a company. So again, it's not all about just compensation of what your total pay is. It's what the whole company has to offer you to help attract and retain you. I can tell you some other things, like benefits for me, again, are huge. When I came over to the current company that I'm at now at Solve Energy, I was excited when they told me I get pet insurance, or I could have pet insurance. I'm a dog mom. I got pet insurance for my dog for the first time. I was so excited. I was like, I don't have kids, so having pet insurance was a big thing for me. I'm like, I get pet insurance? Sign me up. Hello. Right. The other thing that our company gives too, again, it's the little things and the perks that you don't think about. We have DoorDash Pass. That's like $9, $10 a month if I would pay for it on my own. I'm too cheap. I don't pay for it on my own. However, now that I have it, being a dog mom, I love it, because every now and then I have forgotten to buy dog food at the last second. So I'm like, DoorDash, let me get some dog food. That's giving me a huge work-life balance, right? I'm able to now not have to run to the store to go get that dog food because I forgot about it. I can hit DoorDash, have it delivered to my house for free. The company gave that to me as a benefit, so I'm utilizing it. So again, when you're looking at what does a company have to offer, look at every single thing, not just the salary that they're going to be able to give you, because the salary, yes, is huge, but it's all the other things along the way that they can give you. Um, maybe you're somebody who is into your health. Do they give gym memberships or a discount on gym memberships? Those are things, again, if they're giving you a discount, you're going to save money. So that increases your total bottom line to spend other places. So again, all the things add up. Make sure you're looking at those things and how does it affect you and how can it be to your advantage to work for that company and take advantage of their benefits as well as the offer amount that they want to give you. Hope all of that makes sense to you. I can go on and on and on. Um, I know that we're getting close to time, so I do apologize. And I'll open it up to questions if anybody has any questions. You can feel free to drop it in the chat, or I'll come off the presentation so I can actually be on camera to see you guys face to face.
Thank you, Linda. And while the students are thinking about their questions, some did write some templates for salary negotiation.
Yay! I love it. I'm so excited.
I'll share two, but
I
there were
see.
others. One was, I appreciate this offer and I'm eager to work here. Is it within the scope of this offer to negotiate my salary?
I love that one.
Mhm.
Again, it's positive. It's not negative. You're not saying that, hey, I don't like the offer, right? You're asking for another opportunity.
Yes, I love that as well. And then the second one I pulled was based on some of the market research that I've done, I'm targeting a number closer to X dollars per hour. Is there anything we can do to get closer to that?
I love that one too, because to me, that's showing that you did your research. You know what you're talking about, right? You've done your research. You know what the range might be. Can I get more? Again, I love people who are advocating for themselves. It's a hard thing to do. I know that, and I am guilty of it myself. I can tell you that there was a job offer that I had previously. I was excited to get it, and I never thought to negotiate the offer. So bad on me. And, but I worked for a great company that gave a lot of other great benefits. Again, the total rewards.
Yes, I agree. So yes, students, please feel free to either raise your hand to come off mute and ask your question live to Linda, or you can type it in the chat and I'll read it off for the group and for Linda.
And then feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn as well. You can drop me a note on LinkedIn. I know that Kelsey's going to share my contact information with you too. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I'm not a scary person. At least I don't think I am. I mean, and I'm usually really I'm very happy when people ask me questions. Like I had somebody the other day. Oh my gosh, I forgot. I moved my camera again. I'm looking at the wrong side. Sorry. I'll go this way. I was like, sorry, you get the side of my head. So the other day, I actually had a student who was applying for an internship, and he called me and he said, "Hey, I know that the position is filled." He's like, "But can I ask you something?" And I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely." He said, "Is there any way that you guys have job shadowing? I'd be willing to take an unpaid internship. And on top of that, would you also tell me, was there something on my resume that didn't look quite right? Why somebody else might have been selected?" So I actually took the time and I went over his resume with him. And it was ironic because I was telling him kind of different ways to restructure his resume and look at it. And so I actually did a Google search because I said, "Hey, try doing this to see if it's going to tailor your like AI technology. Will it tailor your resume to that job?" And so the funny thing is when I typed it in a Google search, everything that I told him kind of popped up in the same transcript of what I was giving him. And I was like, "Well, at least I know I was on the right track, right?" But I was willing to give him that information. And he was like, "I'm so sorry." He's like, "I want to write all this down, but I'm on my way to class." And I said, "That's totally fine." I said, "What I'm going to do is I'm going to drop this in an email. You have my contact information." I'm like, "Feel free to revise your resume and send it over to me because I'm happy to take a look at it. Because in the future, you never know. You could be an employee of ours, you know?" And so I was building that relationship or building that pipeline already, knowing that I might be able to hire somebody in the future. If not, I was happy to give him the opportunity and the time, because he took the time to ask me. And that's the thing, be willing to take the time, be willing to invest in yourself.
Always great to ask for feedback, and the worst they can say is no, we can't provide it, but the best they can
Exactly.
give you feedback on what you did so that you can improve for next time.
Exactly.
A question did come. When should you negotiate benefits such as vacation days, health insurance, etc.?
So that should all be when you get the offer is when you can start negotiating. So if when you get the offer of what the actual salary amount is, you can ask them, can you send me a benefits guide or a benefits package information so you can take a look at that and see if there's anything in there that you might want to negotiate or if you're perfect with everything that they have to offer. you know we like for different companies I've worked for, we've actually provided like a benefits guide that actually gave a snapshot. One of them was a snapshot that just kind of highlights the benefits, but then there's another one that actually broke down like what my health insurance costs would be, what my vision, what my dental was, type of thing, so I can compare and do nuts and bolts. One thing that I've had somebody offer or negotiate before was, when you are leaving one company and going to another company, there's sometimes a waiting period before you can get health insurance. And that was a huge thing. Like the person was expecting a baby and they're like, I can't not have health insurance. So they actually negotiated health insurance for an additional month for us to pay their COBRA. But they did that during the offer stages rather than signing the offer letter. They asked, we were able to go back and negotiate that for them.
Awesome. That's a good example as well.
So it is.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that.
And sometimes vacation days, just so you know, companies, some places may not have the ability to negotiate vacation days just because if they negotiate vacation days as opposed to what they already have set aside, somebody else who may, like for instance, sometimes, what do you call it? Vacation benefits are seniority and how long you've been at the company. So if they start negotiating that, been with the company for like 5 years and they're getting the same amount of vacation that you might have negotiated from the beginning. So some companies don't negotiate that. However, they can negotiate a start date and say, you know what, we're willing to negotiate the start date. Go ahead and take an extra week off before you start, so that you have that time and you're coming in refreshed.
That's a great clarification point, Linda, are you able to typically negotiate the accrual rate of your vacation days, or were you speaking more to like if you already had a vacation planned and you
The
get
the accrual rate,
okay.
of how much you will accrue. Um, and also, that's another thing to look at too is what your accrual is and what the vacation benefits are. For instance, some companies will say we give you 2 weeks, 80 hours, right? But if you look at another company, what if they give you, 8 hours every month for the year? Well, then that accrues to 12 vacation days a year, 96 hours. So and then when you calculate how much you get paid, again, bottom line, what's your total compensation when you start adding in the dollars and cents of it all? And also, do you get sick time? Do you get floating holidays? Those are all great things to try to calculate into what your total rewards are. Thank you for bringing that up. I meant to put that in the slide and I thought about it and I think I forgot.
No worries.
I was like, there's so much information as far as salary negotiations. And it's like, I wanted to make sure I was trying to highlight the stuff I thought would be important to, a group of people who might be in college or starting like on their first salary negotiations.
No, that was perfect. Thank you for sharing
You're
the
very welcome.
action. We have a few other questions come in. So once
Yeah.
early in the interview stage, if the interviewer asks what our expected pay range is, should we be telling them? And if so, should our number align with the number they are hoping to negotiate for later on, or will that limit our ability to receive the initial offer?
Again, I go back to the research. So it if you've done your research, you kind of know what the range is. And if you've done your research and know the range is, know where you might fall in that range based on what your skills are. Are you coming in more of an entry level, then would you probably be more towards that minimum range or the mid range, or the high range. Again, it all comes down to research. You don't have to give them an amount. You can just say, I fall within that range. Right? I fall within the range you guys have posted. I'm not saying where in the range, I fall in the range. And you can even requote back the entire range that they have posted. And again, not all states will have the job or salary range posted on their jobs. That's relatively new in California. Um, what is it? Wage transparency became a law, I think, in 2023 for California. So in California, it is something employers are required to do, but not all states do. So if you start looking at the salary range and don't see it posted, that could be because they're not a California-based company. But then it's up to you to do a little more footwork and find out what that range might be in that market area. Um, Salary.com is a good one to use. You can also use other ones too, but you can actually go and put the job title, the location, and put down like how many years of experience, and it'll pop up a salary range for you based on that information. So again, if you're doing your research and doing your due diligence, you can have that information even if the job is not posted and does not have that salary range posted. But then you can kind of give them a range again. You're not locking yourself in, you're giving them a range.
I love that. So it sounds like salary.com is a great resource. And
Yeah, I've actually used that before to look at different information just because I don't always know what different states are paying for jobs. So I want to make sure if I'm giving a job offer to, and I've had hiring managers ask me to, are we aligned with this for this region? So then I look it up, make sure. But then we also have a compensation and benefits analyst here at our company who does that. But I also kind of will do that myself. But we actually have somebody who's, skilled and qualified and certified to do that at our company. But not all companies have somebody who does that. So if they don't, then guess what? Somebody like me is doing that on the back end. But then if you're doing it yourself, again, you can do it salary.com. I think Glassdoor also has something similar, but you can just type in and Google it. And I'll provide a couple of links in that sheet that I was going to send you, Kelsey, that you can share with the students that says, hey, here's different websites you can go to and find information. But again, a range, you don't have to lock on a specific number.
love knowing that. And do you think if it's an outside of California role, it's okay to ask during that first interview, what's the
Mhm.
target range for this?
Yes, you can. And they should be able to provide it. And if they don't, you can also say, well, based on my research that I've done, I see that the range is this. Are you aligned with that range that, to make sure that they are giving that same confirmation that, yes, this is aligned. I've actually had this happen to me during COVID. I got laid off from work and I was looking for different jobs. And I think I saw a job that was posted in Tennessee. The pay ranges are a lot different in Tennessee, and when it came down to it, we went through the interview, there was no pay range posted. And when it came down to the actual interview and talking, I asked them, what are the salary ranges for this position? Because I don't want to waste somebody's time and not be aligned with what the pay range was. And it ended up being like $40,000 or $50,000 less than what my target range was, because the cost of living is a lot different in Tennessee than it is in California. And even though it was remote, I didn't think it was still going to work out for me. So I just told them, I appreciate your time. I don't think this is the right opportunity for me at this moment, and wish them well in their job search or candidate search.
Yeah. That's a great example, and thank you for being vulnerable enough to share that with our students. I think that's a great
Mhm.
um, note to make of, different states have different labor, labor.
Everybody has different, yeah, there's different, everybody's going to have maybe different salary ranges for roles based on where their job location might be. So that's something that could impact what the offer amount is. So that's where, again, do your homework to know what the salary range is if they're not posting it. You know, Research is your friend, homework is your friend. It can help you at the end of the day so that you have, again, the tools in your toolbox to be able to set yourself up for success in the salary negotiation process.
Definitely. Another question came in of if the compensation presented to you is one that you do not agree with, how would you go about voicing your disagreement and overall navigating it until both sides reach a consensus?
That's a good question. So you can ask the recruiter or whoever's giving you the offer, whether it's recruiter or HR, be positive about it. Say, I appreciate the offer. Is there room for negotiation? And you can say, hey, in your honest opinion, if there is room for negotiation, what kind of range do you think this would go to? So you have that expectation. You're not being negative about it. You're being positive. You're asking them to give you information. And they might be able to say, I can't disclose that. Or they might say, hey, like I've actually had this conversation before where somebody said, I'm not sure this offer is what is agreeable for me. Is there room for negotiation? I said, well, there could be. I'm not the decision maker. I have to go back to somebody else to get the information. And so then, we kept talking, and I'm like, where are you looking at? As far as like, if I go back and I said I can get you 5,000 more, you know, is that still within the range? So I'm not going back and forth trying to ask for more and more and more. I'm like, where are you trying to target them within this range? So I had information to go forward with to come back. It was open communication, and that's where then they could give me the amount, and I didn't have to go back and forth. Or I could say, hey, if I got this, would you be agreeable to it? If that's something that you're willing to work with. Again, it's the open dialogue. Being brave enough to even have that conversation is a huge thing for me, though, that you're able to ask for it, advocate for yourself. The worst that they can say is no, but the original offer still stands.
Love that. It's a human being on the other side. It's a
It
conversation
is.
at the end of the day.
It is. Like I've gone through multiple salary negotiations for people, and I always appreciate the fact that they're willing to ask. Not too many people get aggressive about it, and a lot of times they're kind of timid about it, going, yeah, is there any room for negotiation? But be confident enough to even ask. That's the thing. Be confident enough to ask that you have the skill set to get more. And that's where part of the challenge is just you being comfortable. That again, we go back to statistics, people are not asking, but that can make a huge difference in your life. So be willing to ask. The worst they can say is no. They won't
Mhm.
take the original offer off the table, or very rarely will that happen.
It's good to know. I think confidence is a big message from this whole session, and I do want to be mindful of everybody's time. It is
Yes, sorry, we are over. Sorry.
no worries, no
I could
worries.
talk all day if you haven't figured that out.
Conversation, and I know our students will probably be following up with you with more questions and thoughts. So
Awesome.
let's please give a round of applause to Linda for giving her time and her talent to us today, and send her a bunch of thank yous. As she mentioned, feel free to connect with her on LinkedIn. I'll be sending out an email tomorrow with a follow-up sheet that she created for you. So she took even additional time to make something for you to have as a takeaway, and her contact info so you can follow up then as well. But thank you so much, Linda. We're so appreciative
Oh,
of you,
thank you. Hope you
and
guys have a great afternoon.
oh, excited to partner with you again in the future.
Oh, absolutely. Thanks so much, Kelsey.
Yes.
Bye.
Have a great rest of your Monday, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you,
Bye.
Linda.